Hi, folks, and welcome back to the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print. And today we're going to be talking about two different stories today from 1995. The first one is called Jabba the Hutt and the Gar Sapoon Hit. This is a comic book starring Jabba the Hutt. Yes, Jabba the Hutt got his own comic books. He had several, and we'll talk about them. But the first one, the Gar Sapoon's Hit, came out in 1995, and you can obviously get it in singles. I have it in the Omnibus Wild Space Volume 2, and it can be found right here. So basically, it's by Tim Woodring, is the one who is the author of this series, and so basically, it's a nothing too crazy. Even the art itself is kind of a little bit simplistic. Not bad, just simplistic. But anyways, Jabba visits the gangster Gar Sapoon, and he betrays Gar, and then Gar betrays Jabba. It's kind of a cycle of one betraying the other. That's pretty much the story. I mean, it's a fun story. It's kind of cool that Jabba the Hutt, of all people, got his own series, but I mean, that's it. It's just a fun story. It's not bad. It's not that great, but it's extravagant. It's out there, and it's something different. So that's really all I have to say about that. Just a short comic book there. But let's talk about the big story that we're going to do, and that is book 2 of the Corellian Trilogy, Assault at Selonia. This is the paperback copy of it, and so let's go ahead and dive in. So Han is captured by Thraken's house Solo. It was kind of set up in the last one, and so we're seeing the follow-up here. And they actually look, you can kind of see Thraken here on the cover. He kind of looks like Han Solo. He's described as being very similar to Han, almost identical, except he's got a beard. I mean, okay, he kind of looks like him. Thraken, as I said in the last one, he is is set up to be a bigger player later in the expanded universe. Obviously, this is kind of his big introduction here in this series. Obviously, chronologically speaking, that's not true, but publication-wise, this is the first time we see him in this trilogy. So Han's captured by him. They actually team up to escape the Selenians, and Dakmus is the main character of the Selenians, and so he's kind of the main antagonist. It's kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend, but reversed. Like, we're going to team up to take on this common threat. So I like the Han story here. Obviously, Han's kind of the main, it being the Corellian Trilogy, Han is kind of the main guy in this trilogy. So I like the Han Solo storyline. It's not bad, but this one you see a lot of him and Thraken kind of teaming up and getting to know each other, and you kind of start to learn a little bit more about that relationship. And their relationship as cousins. So Luke and Lando, going to their story, they have tried to get the New Republic fleet to intervene with the whole lockdown on Corellia. And Akbar is like, no, you can't do that because we're servicing our ships. Now they explain their reasoning for it, so it's not just oh darn, we just can't use it. But Mon Mothma suggests that, hey, why don't you guys go to Bakura and get their fleet to help in this situation. And so Luke and Lando go, and we get to see Gareel from the Truce of Bakura again, and kind of see where she's been at. She's obviously got a family now, so she's kind of moved on since that book. And so it's a nice callback. It's a good, reminder of that. And so Luke and Lando convince her to use the Bakuran fleet to go to Corellia and deal with this crisis. And so Greel, basically, part of her stipulation or contract is that she gets to go too. And they're kind of like, Luke and Lando are kind of like, I don't think so. I don't think that's a good idea. Might not be safe. And she's like, I don't care. I'm going to go anyways. And Luke basically promises her kid that, hey, I'll keep an eye out for her. and that storyline will pop up again later. But basically they go, and so the novel basically kind of starts to wrap up, and it sets up the third book really well. Wedge and his group of people with the New Republic basically are trying to evacuate the planet of Corellia. As basically these stars are going supernova, and there's fear that it could happen and kill many innocent people. So they're trying to get the planet to evacuate, and that's kind of how the novel ends. It kind of sets up that and goes and what are they going to do? For example, the last paragraph is, all he knew for sure was that unless some way could be found to stop the next nova, millions were going to die. That's what it does there. Spoilers. but it sets up the third book really, really well. And so it definitely, the first time me reading this was definitely, me wanting to check out how this is all going to wrap up and everything. So it makes me very excited to talk about book 3. But as we wrap this episode up, the question we always ask, are these two stories essential? The Jabba the Hutt one, I've, as a side note, I've always said that, I liked the second or the first version of Wild Space better than the second. Second did have a couple rare things that I didn't have, this being one of them, or rare or harder to find things. No, the Jabba the Hutt stories are just not, it's not essential. You're not going to miss anything by skipping it. It's not going to, I don't think, add to Jabba the Hutt's character very much. It's just it's a cool thing. You get to see more of him, basically, in the Star Wars universe. This is during the Dark Times, so between 3 and 4 is when this takes place. And then, obviously, the New Republic era novel, Assault at Selonia. This one, I would say yes. The Corellian Trilogy as a whole isn't super essential. It does introduce a lot of good things that come on later in later books. But this isn't bad, and it's definitely essential if you're going to be reading this trilogy. Don't skip this one and go to the third one. This one is just as essential as all 3 of them if you're going to check out the trilogy. But that's just my 2 cents. So folks, thanks so much for checking this out, and I will see you next time with another episode of the Star Wars Library.